Everyone say, thank you, Edwin, for making this PowerPoint which helps you study for your final on Friday. Now we should all be very aware that the main character is Okonkwo. There are a few things that you should already know about him, but as a review, his fame was based on his wrestling skills at the very beginning. However, later it did grow. He was very good at producing things. He was a very good farmer. He was a very hard worker. He had a very large family, and he supported them very well, the definitions of his culture. We can see that his actions are influenced by fears. He's very, very afraid that he will become like his father. We learned a lot about his father through the first several chapters. His father was a big partier. His father borrowed money and never paid it back. His father never really wanted to achieve greatness like Okonkwo did. Finally, you can see that his judgments are based on respect, never being wasteful of time. He doesn't really like parties. He would rather be working. He'd rather be going toward something. In this case, his goal of maintaining a higher position in the tribe. We learn a lot about the city, the tribe, the village of Umuofia, and the people, the Igbo people. When we look at these events and the ways of living in the village, we can see how people take their faith seriously. It pretty much dictates life in the village. We see the wrestling matches, which have three main features. There's an entire chapter devoted to it, and we can also see Okonkwo's rise to fame came via wrestling matches. The Week of Peace and the Feast of the New Yam were both times that Okonkwo was in trouble for exhibiting violence. These weeks were supposed to be offerings to the earth goddess of peace and did not always happen. Many times when people do something wrong and they're expected to pay a fine to the gods, and they also have respect for their elders and the oracle's decisions. Now you can see more of this throughout the book, however, there's some great examples. This is a little mini timeline on Okonkwo's life. It starts with him winning the wrestling match, and then him given responsibility of Ikamafuna, him shooting his wife during the Week of Peace, after she mocked him for his lack of ability to shoot. Ironically, or perhaps not, he was unable to shoot her at this time. It's punished for his actions during the Week of Peace, and he contributes in the killing of Ikamafuna. He was told not to. It was a big event in the story. People said, no, 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 he calls you father, but he did so anyways because he did not want to appear weak. Immediately after killing him, he feels awful, he refuses to eat, he cries. None of this is immensely public, but we can assume that others might have been made aware of his feelings. In the end, he ends up being punished for killing a clansman on accident. We've all talked about the irony, because this was one of the things he did not mean to do. He meant to kill Ikamafuna. He meant to shoot at his wife. He meant to beat his wife for not having his food ready. All of those were things he meant to do, and he was not exiled. But this, which happened accidentally, was what ended up getting him exiled. After 7 years in the town of his mother, he was allowed to come home. When he came home, he found out the white men had taken over control of the village. He was preparing for a battle against the white men, and in the end ended up being arrested. While arrested, he was slightly tortured for starting to create a bad will among the white men, shall we say. Finally, he was released because his villagers had paid the fine for him. In the end, he ended up calling a meeting trying to say we should rebel against the white people. When a white messenger came to stop it, he killed the messenger. And when the other messengers were allowed to get away, he knew that this was the end and there was no war that would come. the white men came to punish him and found that he had hung himself, which was a big sin against his religion. This was something that was not supposed to be an answer for anyone. Now we see that all of his actions, more or less, show his significance to being respected. We see a massive amount of irony in the story. And finally, we can see how fear led Okonkwo to do things so that he would not end up weak like his father. Ironically, many would argue in the end he took the coward's path by committing suicide. Now, I've also read arguments against this, that was actually very courageous because he realized it was so against his religion, it took much bravery to do it. I tend to be on the first side. It was an act of cowardice. However, we know English. Free to interpret it as you will, as long as you can analyze and support. Thank you very much, and good luck on your test.